Ever feel like those assessment centers are more than just tests? Like they're really trying to see how you think on your feet, especially when things get a little ethically tricky.
Yeah, it's like they're throwing you into a real-world scenario.
Right. Some conflict brewing or a tough decision to make.
And every single move you make is under a microscope.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving deep into a case study that kind of pulls back the curtain on all of that.
It is fascinating how we often just see these assessments as a hurdle.
Just another box to check.
Yeah, but they really give us a peek into how organizations work and how potential leaders make decisions under pressure.
And this case study we're looking at today, it really highlights just how important navigating those tricky workplace conflicts and interpersonal dynamics is.
Oh, for sure.
Often way more important than having some perfect strategy, you know?
Absolutely. And this case study, it just drops you right in the middle of it all. Challenging scenario shows you how different candidates try to tackle the problem.
I love how they break down each candidate's response.
It's not just about what they choose, but the why. Gives you such a good understanding of how their thought process works.
So it's not enough to just get the right answer.
Not at all.
You have to really show that you can think critically.
Weigh all those different factors.
And explain your reasoning in a way that's convincing.
Exactly. It helps you understand what assessors are really looking for, goes beyond the surface. You start to see how even small choices, like the way a candidate frames the problem,
How interesting.
can signal a deeper understanding of the ethics involved.
Like you're being given a secret decoder ring.
Exactly. To figure out what really matters in these high-stakes situations, it's about demonstrating a nuanced approach, not just spitting out textbook solutions.
And this particular study focuses on 4 key competencies, right?
Yes. Leadership, ethical decision-making, adaptability, and strategic thinking, all essential for leaders today.
Okay, let's unpack those a bit. What do they really mean in the context of this case study? I'm especially curious about that ethical decision-making piece.
Well, it's more than just knowing right from wrong. It's recognizing that things aren't always black and white.
Right.
There are nuances,
Yeah.
situations where your values might clash.
Yeah.
And you've got to weigh competing priorities, think about the consequences of your actions, and ultimately make a choice that aligns with your principles and the organization's goals.
So how does this case study actually test that? Can you give us an example of how the candidates might approach the ethical dilemma they're given?
Well, this one's particularly interesting because it puts the candidates in a situation where they've got to balance competing interests. They have to think about what's best for the company financially, but also how their decisions will impact employees, customers, maybe even society as a whole.
Well, that sounds like a real challenge. So how do the candidates actually handle that? Do they all come to the same conclusion?
Oh, not at all. And that's what makes this case study so insightful. You see a whole range of approaches, different values, different ways of making decisions. Some are all about maximizing profit.
Yeah.
Others are more focused on social impact. It's like a real-life experiment in ethical leadership.
It is. And seeing those different approaches and how they're interpreted, it gives you insight into what the assessors are really looking for.
Right. It goes deeper than just right or wrong answers. It looks at the nuances of each approach, the strengths and weaknesses. Like the candidate focused on profits, they might have strong analytical skills and financial understanding.
Right. Makes sense.
But maybe they're seen as lacking empathy or a sense of social responsibility.
Interesting. So then what about the candidate who is all about making sure more people could access whatever it was? How would they be perceived?
They'd come across as compassionate, committed to social impact. Those are valuable qualities these days.
For sure.
But they might also need to show they understand financial constraints a little better.
That they get how businesses have to work.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you've got to strike a balance.
You do. You need to show you've got business smarts, but also that you're aware of ethical issues and social impact.
It's about being a well-rounded leader.
Exactly. Someone who can handle the complexities of business today while staying true to their values.
It's clear this case study's got a lot to teach us about how these assessments work. But what about our own professional lives? Even if we're not facing an assessment right now, does this go beyond just getting a job?
Oh, absolutely. These case studies and others like them have lessons that apply way beyond just passing an assessment.
Okay.
They show how important it is to have a strong ethical framework, to really hone those critical thinking skills, and to be able to articulate your reasoning in a way that's compelling. Essential skills for any leader or aspiring leader.
So by understanding how these assessments work, we can actually become better decision makers in every part of our lives.
Exactly. When you study these case studies, you develop a sharper awareness of what's really going on when you make complex decisions, the different approaches, the potential consequences.
It's like a tool for personal and professional growth.
That's a great way to put it.
But how do we actually put these insights into action? What can we do to improve our decision-making process, especially when we're facing ethical dilemmas?
Well, let's look at one specific candidate's answer. It really shows just how complex this ethical dilemma can be. Okay, so in the case study, you're told the company has this amazing new drug,
Okay.
could save tons of lives,
Awesome.
but making it is really expensive.
Oh.
So if they want to make a profit, they can only sell it to a very limited number of people.
Oh, that's a tough one. What did the candidates say?
All sorts of things. Shows how different people prioritize different things, different decision-making styles.
Yeah.
One candidate, for example, was focused mainly on the money.
Yeah.
Said the company has a responsibility to its shareholders to make as much profit as possible.
Makes sense.
Proposed a high price for the drug. Argued that the company could then invest those profits into research and development.
Oh, I see.
So maybe eventually they could make more affordable treatments.
So that candidate's looking at the long game.
Right. Financial health of the company, potential for future innovation, even if it means fewer people can get the drug right now.
Yeah, makes sense. Did any of the other candidates come at it differently?
Oh, yeah. Another one was much more focused on people.
Interesting.
Argued that the company had like a moral obligation to make the drug available to as many people as possible,
Okay.
even if it meant less profit.
Wow.
Suggested maybe different pricing models, partnerships with nonprofits, or even government subsidies to help get it to more people.
So it's like social impact versus making money. This case study really makes you think about your own values, what you do in that kind of situation.
It does, and that's what assessors want to see, how you wrestle with these tough issues, weigh different perspectives, and come to a decision you can really stand behind.
So it's not just about getting to the right answer. It's about how you get there.
Yeah. And this study doesn't just say if an answer is right or wrong. It really digs into the thinking behind each approach, shows the good and the bad. Like the profit-focused candidate, they showed strong analytical skills,
Makes sense.
understood financial principles,
Right.
but they might come across as lacking empathy or a sense of social responsibility.
I can see that. What about the candidate who wanted everyone to have access to the drug?
Well, they showed compassion, commitment to helping people. That's huge these days.
Yeah.
But maybe they need to show a bit more understanding of how businesses work.
The financial realities.
Right.
So it's all about balance, huh?
Exactly. You have to come across as a leader who can handle the business side of things while also staying true to their values.
It's clear this case study is a real window into the assessment process. But can we take these insights and use them in our everyday work lives, even if we're not facing an assessment right this minute? Does it go beyond just getting a job?
Absolutely. These case studies offer valuable lessons that go way beyond just acing an interview.
Okay, good.
They highlight things that are crucial for anyone in a leadership role or aiming for one. Developing that strong ethical framework, really sharpening your critical thinking skills, and learning to explain your reasoning in a way that people understand and buy into.
We're talking about becoming better decision makers in all areas of our lives.
Yeah,
Not just in a job interview.
exactly. When you analyze these case studies, you become more aware of the different factors at play when making big decisions.
Right.
You see the various paths you can take, the potential consequences.
It sounds like a great way to grow both personally and professionally. But how do we make that happen? How do we take these insights and use them to actually improve our decision-making, especially when ethical issues come up?
It is tricky, right? Going from like a theoretical case study to a real-life ethical dilemma.
Yeah, it feels like a big jump.
It is. Nothing beats actual experience. But by looking at these case studies, seeing how those assessors break down the responses,
Yeah.
you can start to approach your own decision-making in a more structured way.
Okay, I like that. So how would you actually do that?
Well, first, when you're hit with a tough choice, ask yourself a few key questions.
Okay.
Like, what values are really at the heart of this?
Boy,
Who's going to be affected by my decision?
good point.
What could happen, good and bad, if I choose each option?
It makes you really pause, right?
It does. You have to slow down, think things through.
Instead of just going with your gut.
Exactly. It's about being deliberate. Another good thing to try.
Yeah.
practice explaining your reasoning out loud.
Oh, interesting.
Like you're telling a coworker or even an assessor.
I see.
It helps you get your thoughts straight,
Makes sense.
spot any holes in your argument,
Right.
and present your decision in a more convincing way.
So it sounds like preparation is really key.
It is. If you practice these skills, you'll be way more ready to handle those high-pressure moments when they come up.
Because they will come up.
Oh, they will. And remember, with these complex scenarios,
Yeah.
there's not always one right answer. Assessors are looking for that thoughtful approach,
Yeah.
One that's in line with your values and the organization's goals. And that's something you can definitely work on, get better at over time.
This has been a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
Really got into the nitty-gritty of assessment centers and how ethical decision-making plays out.
Oh, we did.
We unpacked a really interesting case study, saw how different candidates responded, and learned some great strategies for handling similar challenges in our own lives.
And the great thing is, these lessons go way beyond just the assessment itself.
That's what I was thinking.
We're talking about building core leadership qualities.
Right.
Ethical awareness, critical thinking, the ability to deal with complexity.
Being comfortable with the gray areas.
Exactly. That's going to serve you well throughout your career.
For sure.
So as we wrap up today, just remember, every challenge, every tough decision, it's a chance to grow. Embrace the complexity, use the insights we've talked about today.
Yeah.
You can become a better leader, a smarter decision maker, and ultimately someone who makes a real difference.
Great advice. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.